I've just got myself a copy of Dragonstrike, thanks to eBay. It's a dungeon crawl type game that came out in 1993 that TSR, do you remember TSR? Tried to sell to the kids with a video. Oh yes, a VHS video, which apparently someone has pirated and put on YouTube, so I'll stick a link in the description below. And was it a great game? Well, it had, the plastic figures like this Scorpion Man who will eventually come into folk. Come on, camera, you can do it. Come on. Is he folk? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so there you go. It's by today's standards, a mediocre figure. And but my word, the autofocus on this camera is slow. And it has boards like this. There's a town like that, and there's a countryside on the other, bit corny. But the thing is is it really a role-play game? And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video, which is sponsored by Audible. More of that later. But I would say that actually it's not really a role-play game. I mean, this is not much more than advanced Ludo. You've just got a load of completely disparate characters. One wizard and one elf and one dwarf and one warrior or whatever. And they go on a mission and they all just somehow stick together and they fight this mission and they go on another one and then another one. And that's it really. They're little more than playing pieces on a board. It's not really a role-playing game. It's not really drama. You see, to put it in television terms, it's like the A-Team. You can't really take it seriously as drama, can you? The A-Team. Again, you've got the disparate characters. They've all got amazing skills, haven't they? And together, what a team they make. They have all the skills between them to carry out loads and loads of missions. They go on one mission and then they succeed and they beat up various other people along the way. But who really cares about those? They're all irrelevant. Then they go on some other mission and it's, repeat, week after week. Or CSI, or any of those crime dramas where you have just a small group of characters, the various policemen, and they investigate, and they've got every skill that forensic policemen might need. They can run every scientific test. They never have to refer to anyone outside the department because they've just got everything they need in this tiny, neat team that week after week does mission after mission after mission. And it's not really drama, is it? It's long-running television series where each week you can have a self-contained story, and it's not really drama. But if you think of something like Breaking Bad, okay, it's episodic again, but it's much more dramatic, isn't it? It gets much darker, and the characters are much more internally conflicted, and the relationships between them are much more complicated and constantly changing. That's one of the things I really liked about Breaking Bad. The relationships between the main characters were different at the end of every single episode. You never felt, it wasn't like Lost where they just strung it out for just episode after episode, or Heroes, or any of those ones where they just string it out for an outrageous amount of time. Things changed in Breaking Bad, and they changed in the human relationships between the characters, and you had these very dramatic moments and this big build within a whole series. Then of course the whole story of Breaking Bad, which takes place over 5 different series, or seasons as Americans call them, and it's much more epic and much more powerful, and you feel it's much more weighty drama. And that's not what Dragonstrike is. That's not what Dungeons and Dragons. That's not what almost all role-playing games are, really. Almost all role-playing games, you have a group of disparate characters with a skill mix between them, and they have a shared goal, a shared mission, and they do that mission, and then the following week, when you get together with your friends to play again, you do another mission, and then another, and it's more like the A-Team, isn't it? Rather than really high-quality drama. And so a lot of people looking at role-play games think role-play games haven't really grown up. They need to grow up. They're just kids playing advanced Ludo and rolling lots of dice and killing things and nicking treasure. Yeah, and while that can be fun, and I got that out, for a nostalgia hit, but I won't regard that as a role-play game. So, has anyone come up with anything better? Well, yes, I believe that they have. Now, there's a game which I've been playing for a while now called, I'm afraid to have to say this, it's called Hillfolk, which is a disastrously awful name for it. A few times I've tried to get people to play this game. Hey, should we have a game of Hillfolk? And people say, oh, it's a brown and... What's it about? Oh, is it that one where you're all stuck up a hill in Bronze Age Israel? No, I don't fancy that. Yeah, okay. What they should have called it is Drama System. And when they brought out Blood on the Snow, which was a follow-up volume with loads more stuff, then it says on that, a Drama System Companion. Yeah, Drama System. That really works as a title. Hillfolk really doesn't. big mistake. Apparently, the reason it got called Hillfolk is that they launched it with a Kickstarter campaign, and it had just the one setting of bizarrely Bronze Age Israel, as though that's going to appeal to a very large number of people. Clearly it doesn't. But they said, as stretch goals, if we get loads more money than we were originally asking for, then we'll put loads more settings in, which they did. And in fact, this big, thick book is almost entirely settings. Each one of these pictures, you see they're about 4 pages apart, is another setting for it. And enormously more interesting settings than Bronze Age Israel. But never mind about the settings for the moment. Let's talk about why this is different, why this is not just another roleplay game. Now, it's from Pelgrane Press. I quite like their game Skullduggery, which I got into for a while. Skullduggery is set up for one-off games, and it's where the various players are playing against each other. For example, one of the games I played was set during a conclave in the Holy Roman Empire in the Vatican, with all the various cardinals conspiring amongst themselves to choose the next pope. And of course, every single player character plays a cardinal who wants a different guy to become pope, and so they're all working against each other, and that's what Skullduggery was about. But this is different. This is more serious drama. Skullduggery is a bit of a comedy thing. This is more like long-term television drama, like Breaking Bad. And as a game aid, I produced this. You see, this is a breakdown of the characters as if you were playing Breaking Bad as a game of drama system. Now, what you do is you say that I am going to... The first character is created by... Okay, sorry, I'll start again. In most roleplay games, the referee, the GM, the games master, whatever you want to call him, the umpire, he is responsible for the entire world and everything in it, including its laws of physics, the behavior of every single person in it, and where the people are going to, where the setting is going to be for all the various scenarios, responsible for absolutely everything except the player characters. And the players, each is responsible solely for his own player character. So when you're creating a character normally in a roleplay game, you get the rule book, some dice and a pencil and a piece of paper, and head down, you make some decisions, roll some dice, note stuff down, and after a while you go, finished, and there you go. You present your character, and everything on that piece of paper you have chosen. And you did in isolation, pretty much, of what other people were doing. And so, I've got a thief. Yeah, thief, right. I'm not a thief, really. He's a thief. And so-and-so's got a cleric, and so-and-so's got a wizard, or whatever, depending on the genre. But the Dungeons and Dragons, fantasy, medieval wizards and all the rest of it, sort of Lord of the Ringsy world, is the one that most people are familiar with. And that is not realistic, because in reality, we, to some degree, choose who we are, but largely we don't. We don't choose how old we are. You know, and age just sort of creeps up on you, or you just get born at a particular time. You don't get to choose that. We don't get to choose our health. We don't get to choose how intelligent we are. Most things we don't really get to choose. Most of us get to even to choose our own name. So maybe it's better for dramatic purposes that rather than individuals creating their characters, that the group creates the characters. So as I see it, in drama system, I'm going to call it drama system, not Hillfolk, the GM, the games master, is more like the head writer and creator of the show, and the players are more like the writers on the writing team. In America, unlike Britain, television shows tend to be written by a team rather than by just one or two individuals. So, as long as the whole team likes an idea, it's in, and anyone can throw in an idea. So, you might say, right, the GM might say, right, as the creator of the show, I'm saying that this is set in New Mexico, present day, and it's a sort of a gritty, dark world of crime and police and drug lords and that sort of thing. It's set in that sort of world. Okay, go. And the first player might say, oh, okay, well, I'm Walter, and I'm a respectable middle class chemistry teacher, and okay, that's it, you don't have to say any more. Right, we'll go with that. So we've got our first character, Walter, right? And okay, so then to the next character you say, so who are you? And what is your relationship with that first character? So someone might say, well, I'm Jesse. I'm a bit of a Jack the Lad. I'm a criminal. I'm a meth cook. That's right. I actually make drugs and I deal them, and I think I'm pretty special, and I think myself a bit of a ladies' man, and so that's me. Oh, and Walter taught me chemistry. So that's the relationship. Okay, right, that's fine, that's enough. On to the next one. And so the next guy might say, well, I'm Hank, and I'm a policeman. And my relationship is, I once arrested Jesse. At which point the player of Jesse might think, oh, hang on, what? I thought I was this, this criminal on the run from the law, and you can't catch me. And now the law already knows about me, and I've already been arrested. And I've got one of the other player characters who's after me. How's that going to work? Because Hank isn't on, if you like, the same team as Jesse. He's actually trying to arrest him, trying to pin a crime on him. And then the next character the next player might say, okay, well, I'm Marie, and I'm married to Hank, and I'm a kleptomaniac. And now the character who just created Hank, who was this, go get 'em, gung-ho policeman, he's now got a trouble and strife, and what's more embarrassing, she's a kleptomaniac. Well, yeah, that's not good. He wouldn't have chosen that. Well, then people don't, though. Policemen don't choose their wives to become kleptomaniacs. But can you see that there's dramatic potential in her being a kleptomaniac? And other people around the table might go, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. That works, yeah. And then someone else might say, okay, I'm Skylar, and I'm Marie's sister. And I'm married to Walter. Okay, so now we've got relationships between the various characters, which now means that Hank is now the brother-in-law of Walter, so that creates a new line. So you can start writing that, you end up with this something like this. You see, it's a really messy sheet of paper with loads of characters on it, with arrows to people, with notes on them, and how all the various relationships work. So if you look at the black arrows on this graphic here, that's the basic setup we've got. Now you may ask more questions. I won't go through the entire character creation process, just the basics of it. So you might have, you might ask people, what's your prime motivator? So it might be love, it might be respect, it might be manliness, the good life, or normality, and they say these things. Okay. Now here's perhaps the best bit. You say, with regard to some other character, you say what you want from them. And it's not I want to borrow a hammer from, because that's not dramatic, because you might have a scene, can I borrow your hammer? Yeah, sure, I'm not using it. There's no drama in that, and the situation is now resolved. You've now successfully borrowed the hammer, so there's no emotional content to that. So there's an emotional thing you want from that person. So for instance, Walter might say that he wants the love and respect of Skylar, his wife. Okay, perfectly reasonable. But then the player playing Skylar says why Walter cannot have that. So you ask for something that you cannot get, and we then find out why they can't get it. And in coordination with the other people around the table and the GM, we agree on a setup of relationships. So why might Skylar say that she can't unquestioningly and unconditionally give her love and respect to Walter? Well, it's because he's a bit bumbling, so she can't respect him all that much for him. Oh, what? I'm bumbling, says Walter. And a lot of people around the table might say, oh, yeah, make him bumbling, that'll work. And you're lying to me. You're lying to me about something because maybe you're messed up. Maybe you're mixed up in this world of crime somehow that we haven't worked out yet, because we're just putting together the characters and the relationships at this point. And because you're lying to me, I can't completely respect you. But maybe there's something more. That's right. I pity you. There's something about you that's somehow pitiable. And someone else then might say, oh, how about he's dying of cancer? And around the table, yeah, and the GM think, yeah, that's a good idea, and writes down dying of cancer. At which point, the player playing Walter might say, what? Hang on, I'm dying of cancer? What? I didn't create dying of cancer. What? Yeah, but it's all for dramatic purposes. So if a lot of people think there's a lot of dramatic potential in the fact that he's dying of cancer, and that can act as a motivator for him to do all sorts of quite extreme things, so yes, okay, yeah, so we write down dying of cancer. So he wants love and respect from his wife. He can't get it because, and you do this. You create arrows between all the various characters. You don't have to have an arrow from every character to every other character, but 2 or 3 per character is enough. And something that one character wants from another, and then a reason he can't get it. Jesse, for instance, is trying to escape from Walter for most of the television show, but unfortunately, he needs him. So you have all these these conflicting arrows that set up very interesting set of relationships between the characters, which means that every single scene has got an emotional content to it, which leads to drama. So go for drama. Now another thing that each character has is an internal conflict. They're called dramatic poles in the system. So for instance, Walter wants to be the family man, doesn't he? He wants to be the dad and the husband and to do things right as the family man. But unfortunately, he also rather likes being a crime lord, doesn't he? And those two things pull in opposite directions. You can't really be both perfectly. And other characters like Jesse, if you're familiar with Breaking Bad, I hope that most of you are at least familiar with the basic setup of Breaking Bad, even if you haven't seen it. But if you haven't seen it, I would recommend seeing it because it's really good. I mean, it's very, very dark, particularly the latest series, but it's very good. Anyway, Jesse's actually looking for excitement at first, isn't he? But if you watch the series a bit more carefully, really, he's also looking for safety. He's trying to set up a home. He actually wants the home, the girlfriend, the family, the safety, to get away from Walter and everything that he represents and get away from the police. He's looking for safety, but he also quite likes excitement, and wanting safety and wanting excitement pull in opposite directions. So all the various characters have their poles. Oh, a good example is Hank, who really wants to be the one of the guys, doesn't he? The team player, one of the team, one of the buddies. Hey, yeah. But at the same time, he also wants to be the go it alone solo hero, and those are two things that are not compatible. And Hank comes a cropper more than once because of that conflict. So you set up this network of relationships between the characters, and then you can start the game. There's a bit more to it than that with skills and what have you, but never mind about those. The main thing which makes this interesting is this web of connected characters who have a reason to come into conflict with each other, a reason to meet each other again and again and again, but not necessarily all at the same time. There are scenes that the rules refer to as conference scenes, where you have all the characters in the same room at the same time, in the same place at the same time, ready to interact with each other. And in fact, if you've watched Breaking Bad, I'm not sure if there's a single scene in the whole of Breaking Bad in which these 5 main characters are actually in a position to talk to each other all at once. The way you play the game is you call a scene. You say, right, I think it would be interesting if there's a scene between so-and-so and so-and-so where this character is trying to get this from that other character, and the situation is this, it happens here and there, and go. So then they start acting out that scene. So you might go to someone and ask for their help with something, but what you really want is their recognition that you are part of their team. And that person may say, okay, yes, I will help you, but maybe not give you the emotional reward that you're after. And so after the scene, you can discuss with the characters, did you actually get what you were after? And the person who grants the other person something gets a reward, a little story token which they can spend later. So if your character keeps getting everything he wants, then he actually doesn't progress in the story quite so well, because he doesn't end up with loads of tokens. Other people, by giving him what he wants, get the tokens, so then later they can use those tokens to their advantage. So the system is deliberately set up so that no one has a great run of good luck all the time. Now there is a system, which I won't go into any detail about resolving conflict. You don't roll dice, you use tokens and cards from a pack and so forth. Never mind the mechanism, but there is just one interesting thing I'll say about it. You have 3 tokens. A token which, if spent, gives you a very poor chance of succeeding, a middling one, and your best chance. So you have these 3 tokens, and if you spend, let's say, your best chance, okay, I want to succeed at this thing, you've then got the other 2 tokens to pick from the next time you try a skill, try to resolve something which won't necessarily go the way you want. And then you spend the next token, and then the 3rd time you've only got whatever's left. So if you spend your good one and your middling one first, you've only got the bad one. Your luck will run out. So you might think, maybe it's actually better for dramatic purposes at this stage in the story for my character to fail. So you might deliberately play your I don't stand much of a chance of succeeding with this token. They're not this big, by the way, the tokens. They're usually a fair bit smaller. But I decided to make it big for the purposes of this video. It's only miming. And then the other people might around the table agree, yes, actually it's dramatically appropriate that he fail at this particular point because it's better for the story. And people can help or hinder you succeed throughout their actions and playing their own tokens and so forth. So another thing is that no random bullet, thanks to a weird freakish die roll, will kill a character ever. A character can only die if everyone around the table agrees that it's dramatically appropriate that they die in this way at this point. And if everyone is agreed, yep, that character, it is dramatically appropriate, then you can kill a character off. So a random bit of bad die rolling will never kill you off. So that's a bit of reassurance to people who are trying to contribute to a story and don't want just a game mechanism to get in the way of that and just kill them off or make them fail in a really annoying way just because of a bad die roll. No, if everyone around the table agrees that it's dramatically appropriate that something happens, then it can just happen. And now, if you're watching this video at all, then you're probably a little bit geeky and you're probably quite, like these sort of things. You probably like stories and role-play gaming and so forth. And so you probably like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And if you take advantage of Audible's month free offer, you could listen to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy for nothing. Now, when I say listen to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, see, Audible is an audio book company that exists on the web, and they've got a huge, unparalleled, apparently, collection of audio books for you to listen to. And if you follow the link in the description, or go to www.audible.com/Lindybeige, if you like typing in addresses, I don't know why you would do that, but if that's what you like typing, do it. Then you can take advantage of an offer of 1 month's free membership of Audible, during which you get 30% off all sorts of Audible books, and you get 1 free download that's yours to keep forever. So if you want an audio book and for free, well, you could just do this. And if you, at the end of the month, you decide, well, you know what, this isn't really for me, you could just unsubscribe and owe nothing more. And you can hear the original. Now, you probably have, because you're the sort of person watching this video, so you probably have heard the original Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But just in case you haven't, for goodness sake, take this opportunity, because they've got not just the Audible book as read by, the audio book as read by Stephen Fry, National Treasure and all the rest of it. Yeah, but they've got the original BBC dramatised thing with all the sound effects and all the proper acting and the music and bam, ba-dam, bam, 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 ba-ba-da-ba-dam, bam. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, by Douglas Adams, starring Peter Jones as the book. It's marvellous. And now, when I went to a new school when I was 16, I would mention that I was a tremendous fan of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I got the same bizarre reaction. Every single person I spoke this to, they all tightened up, and they just all said, without exception, I'm not kidding, without exception, they went, I hated that book. Which was very surprising to me, because I thought it was just the most marvellous thing. But why did they hate that book? Unfortunately, a trendy and I'm sure well-meaning English teacher had made it the set book the year before. So if you want to annihilate someone's pleasure in a book, force them to read it, and then they'll really hate it. But whenever I hear someone say, I remember reading that book, or I don't like that book, or do like that book, or whatever, it makes me sad just a little bit, because The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a radio series. It was originally conceived as a radio series. The fact that Zaphod Beeblebrox, for instance, has 2 heads is a joke that works really well on radio, but then when you have to put it on the screen, it's not quite as funny. It's so much funnier in radio. So what you can do is you can hear the way that The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was originally intended to be heard, and you can find it for free if you want on Audible. And frankly, I highly, highly recommend doing that. So follow the link, and you can take advantage of your free month's offer on Audible. So now back to Hillfolk and all that. Now, there are many advantages of this system, and one is that the GM does not have to go to a huge amount of work to create settings. The settings in here are extremely diverse. In one of them, for instance, your ants in an anthill, and the one I'm just looking at now, your escaped slaves living in the maroons of South America. or you're a robot that's just become sentient in a world in which it isn't legal for a robot to be sentient. You're rabbits living in a rabbit warren. You're living in the Raj, the British Raj. You're a ninja in Shuriken in the Shadows. You're the steampunk genres, all the rest of it, and some of them are a little bit like conventional stuff. Like one of them, for instance, which I wouldn't play. You read it and you think, yeah, this is Call of Cthulhu, isn't it? Just reset for this system. But there are far more interesting, far more dramatic ones. You're all time travelers that have gone back to the Spanish Civil War and then have got stuck there. And then there's all the politics of the Spanish Civil War. But you only need, like, here's for instance, just randomly now, this is one's called The Battle of Wits. This one's about pamphleteers in the 18th century, Jonathan Swift, Samuel Johnson, people like that. You see there's a picture just for Atmos, there's a quick introduction there, then there are some ideas for characters, and then themes, ideas that you could play with, art versus money, for instance, Whigs against Tories, the damnation of fools, the honour versus reputation, and so forth. And then you have things called tightening the screws, just ideas that you can throw in there just to up the drama. For instance, somebody pirates your book and you get no money for this, and what are you going to do about it? Or some young upstart steals your thunder with a brilliant review. His name is Samuel Johnson, so you can throw in an NPC and so forth. So there are these ideas for just tightening the screws. Professional wrestling was another one in here which I really liked. So you have all these settings which are only about 4 pages long, if that. You can make up a setting extremely quickly. You only really have to have the germ of an idea. Oh, another one I quite liked was you're all orcs. The orcs have just conquered the empire. Yes, I know normally the orcs lose for some reason or other because the heroes foil their plans. But what if the orcs actually beat the human empire and have taken over? And so there you are. You're all orcs. You've won. And now what? So do we kill all the humans? Do we enslave them? Do we? What do we do? Are we stopping here, or are we trying to conquer the next place? Are we consolidating? Are we going back home? What are we doing? We never actually expected to win, and so it's an interesting, dramatic situation. Now, I have played this quite a few times now, and with one exception, it has always gone extraordinarily well. The one I think that perhaps went the best, which I've played 3 times, is a setting where robots are just starting to become sentient. They have tripped the wire in the language of the game, and the drama that came out of this was absolutely wonderful. There was one character who was tripping the wire, just becoming sentient, but was completely confused about what this sentience was. And he was a surgeon. And he used to be able to just cut humans up and so forth quite happily. But then during a surgery, he'd actually, surgical operation, he started tripping the wire and becoming conscious of what he was doing. And my goodness, I'm cutting someone up. If I make a mistake here, I could kill someone. And he got the jitters, and this was completely new to him. And other people observed this and realised, oh, we've got to look after this guy, because there are people who will realise that he's sentient and then will perhaps put him on the scrap heap or something. And the drama that came from that was just wonderful to behold. And these situations that were genuinely dramatic came out of play. I, as the referee, was just sort of nudging and pushing towards people being creative, towards these dramatic points, but I wasn't writing them in advance and channeling the plot in any particular direction. So the freedom that the players have around the table is extraordinary. So I had the same setting with sentient robots 3 times, and all 3 times it came out completely differently. The first time we were in a hospital in New York. The second time we were in a city which had a robot development factory in, I think it was Birmingham, and then another one was set in the British Museum for no particular reason. So these various characters bounced off each other because they had this to work with. They had this set of relationships, and that's all you needed as a springboard for creativity. So I think that this method, even if you don't particularly like this system in all its details, I think this basic method of creating relationships between characters is going to really take off. And one of the reasons I say that is that the very first time I played this, immediately all the other players who were involved in lots of other role-play games, they all started drawing networks, taking all the player characters, writing their names on pieces of paper and drawing arrows representing relationships between them. And I have used this to enliven other games. For instance, one setting I really like is Mega City 1, Judge Dredd. And I've just heard today that a television series is in development for Judge Dredd. Oh, I hope they don't muck it up, because Judge Dredd could be so good, unlike those two movies, particularly the first one, which was abysmal. But anyway, the setting of Judge Dredd for a role-play game is good, but there is a big problem, because the judges are all sort of the same. One judge or another judge, they all have pretty much the same equipment, very similar skill sets, and they're all highly motivated to do the same thing. They're all trying to solve the crime. They're all focused to the same end. So they're a bit like ciphers. They don't necessarily bounce off each other much. They don't necessarily have relationships within the group of judges. So if you just add on this technique and just draw a couple of arrows from one character to another and say, what do you actually want from this colleague that you're not getting? And then you put them into the crime-solving situation, and suddenly the scenes become so much more interesting. And when someone makes a sarcastic remark, it holds so much more meaning and has so much more dramatic potential. So this method, which I would very much recommend, enlivens pretty much all role-play games. I have had one game that didn't go too well, and there it was a great setting. It was out of this book again, and it was where all the characters were in a sort of hyperspace. Now, of course, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has improbability drive to explain how people are able to get from one star to another, which is always a problem with sci-fi, because stars are really terribly far apart. But anyway, in this, just accept the pseudoscience, okay? In this, there are ships that are navigated by dreamers. There's someone aboard the ship who's in a chemically induced coma, and their dreams create dream space, and the ship is able to navigate through dream space and thus make extremely long journeys. But something has gone wrong, and all the characters were stranded in space because they've gone the wrong way. And the way they had to solve the problem was they had to go into the dreams of the dreamer, and that was a bit weird, and then solve why the dreamer was having some sort of problem. And the trouble was that all the characters were aboard this little ship, so it's a bit like having a load of adventures in a dungeon. You're in a confined space, so you could hardly get away from each other. You had an excuse to keep meeting each other over and over again. And there were loads of conference scenes with all the characters that didn't really use the system quite so well. And everyone was in the same shared danger. Everyone needed to work out why they were stranded in space and to do whatever was necessary to get them out of that to get them out of the fix. So that meant that they, after a while, didn't really do much calling of scenes between and trying to work out the relationships between the characters. Instead, they were all just focused on the main task of rescuing themselves and everyone else in the same process. So that didn't quite work. But where you do have characters with conflicts and complexities between them, and they're not all quite after the same thing. Jesse and Hank are definitely not after the same thing. But those characters, then you've got a long-term dramatic potential, and I love this system. I don't know, did I mention that enough? I would say that I quite like. So there you go. If you're into role-play gaming, Hillfolk, worth a look.